Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
It's Tracy again. Let's see here. Oops, still admitting students and still making sure I have them. Yeah, I have that one. Okay. All right. I'm recording. So those of you who are here, you're here and you're going to get your points. Last week, I was able to get those points on right away, right after we ended. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that tonight, but I would have them on there by tomorrow. So don't worry about that. But once again, if you are here and present, you do not need to watch the recording and excuse me, and do the paper because you're here. You're going to get your points that way. But the recording will be available. And if you want to see it, you can, and it's going to be posted in the assignment for the paper, the synchronous Zoom 2 meeting spot. And so, okay, let's jump in. All right. So, I'm going to be using that PowerPoint that Dr. Pill King put together. Well, you'll remember from last time we did that. All right, I'm just going to, first of all, let me ask you if you have any questions. And let's talk about that for just a minute while I get my PowerPoint going. So who's got questions? Nobody? All righty then. Let's see here. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Good to go. Okay, so it's working this time. Yay. All right, let's come on. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, here we go. My advanced key didn't work the way it did before. All right, so where are we right now? So first of all, I want to say that anything that's been submitted up until I'd say 3 o'clock today has been graded, and you can see that under grades. Excuse me. So if you've submitted something since then, then it's not graded. But whatever has been submitted up to now is graded and ready for you. Also, along with that is on these individual assignment papers, I embedded comments within the paper. So I have a general comment on the outside where the grade is, but you'll need to click into your paper to see the comments that I might. Some of them aren't a lot. Some of them have more. Some of them are, if I ask a question, it's more of a rhetorical question, more just me like, I wonder this. I don't remember if I've actually put a question. I tried to change those to statements so that people wouldn't be concerned about having to answer me. But anyway, those comments are in that paper all the way through. So even on the assessment forms. So you'll see them in there. Okay. We are halfway into this semester. Can you believe it? Halfway. Oh my gosh. Week 4. I'm telling you, we get started and then we're here. And then 4 weeks from now, boom, we're going to be done. It goes really fast. So, how's it going for y'all? Anybody want to comment?
Your class has been good.
Maria, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Can you hear me now?
No,
I can hear you.
Oh, that's weird because I don't think
Am I
I'm
the
muted.
only one?
I can hear you.
Can anybody else hear her?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to mute you and then unmute you. Why won't it unmute?
I am unmuted.
There.
Can you hear me now?
Can't get you.
It's okay. I'll just
All
pass.
Right. All right. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. I'll see if I don't see anything in the chat right now. But okay, so tonight what we're going to do is go through the Kirkpatrick level 2 overview and item construction. And then we're going to talk about this next assignment that's coming up that will be due on Sunday, April 21st. 21st? Yeah, right? Yes.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to do tonight. We talked about that. So part of what you're doing here is you're learning this theoretical background of evaluating training, but also by doing these assignments, you're also getting the knowledge and skills on how to execute these evaluations. So that's the purpose of these assignments. So what you've just done, the assignment that you just turned in, is reviewing a reactionnaire. This next assignment that we're preparing for with tonight's material, excuse me, is to create a Kirkpatrick level 2 test. So that's what your next assignment is going to be about. And then the next 2 assignments after that are going to be group projects. And those are going to be toward working on developing an evaluation plan. So I hope I remember to talk about this again later on in the evening. But if I forget, you can remind me. But also, I really just want to tuck in here that those last 2 assignments are team projects. And so if you have people that you would like to be grouped up with, please shoot me a message, a text, an email, or a course message, however you want to do it, and let me know that you want to be grouped together. We can do up to 4 people in a group. So, and we have 20 people in the class right now. So, and if you don't have somebody to group up with, I'm going to put you in groups. So, and I will make an exception if somebody just absolutely insists that they must work independently on this. I can allow that, but the issue with that is part of the grade, a significant part of the grade. Let's see if I have that right in front of me. Hold on a second. I know I have it here somewhere right at my fingertips. Yes, I do. A significant part of that grade is,
And the rest?
no, I don't have it on here. The evaluation of your team members. There's a document for that, and you're going to be filling that out. So if you're working on your own, how's that going to work? I mean, I don't want you to miss out on those points. So what I'm saying is, if you have people you want to group up with, great, let me know. If you don't tell me, then I'm going to be grouping people, and I will send an announcement about that. I won't be doing it yet, but I probably will be doing it early next week. Also, just to let you know, I'm going to be traveling a long weekend. So from in the middle of the night between Thursday and Friday until Monday night, I'll be available, but I'm going to be traveling. So there's going to be chunks of time where I won't be very responsive, but I won't be responsive at all. And also grading, I'll be doing that after I get back in town. So I won't start that until Tuesday for that week. Okay, so if you want to be in a group with your friend or friends, let me know. I will group you. That assignment isn't going to, the team assignments aren't until week 6 and week 8. So there's still time for that. I'm not, I don't want you to get panicky about it. I'm just telling you, and then I'm going to group you up. Let me check this chat here. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's carry on here. So, as I was saying, you've already reviewed reactionnaires with this last assignment. You're going to be creating a level 2 test with this assignment, and then you're going to be developing an evaluation plan with the team. All right. So that's what we're covering here in these teams, in these synchronous sessions, these Zooms. Last time we had a Zoom, we talked about Kirkpatrick level 1. This time we're talking about level 2. Next time we'll talk about levels 3 and 4. And then on our last Zoom, we'll talk about the success case method. And also I'm going to just highlight this. You see where it says collaborate here and there throughout the course? Just so you know, and so that won't be confusing to you, Collaborate used to be the name of the web conferencing tool in a different LMS. So the learning management system. So that's old language. We don't use that anymore. We're using Zoom now, and this PowerPoint hasn't been updated to reflect that little tidbit. So I hope you understood that already. And but if you didn't, that's why that says collaborate. Okay, so let's get into the Kirkpatrick level 2. All right, first of all, what comes to your mind when we think about tests? Who wants to say? Who can we hear when they turn on their mic? What do you think of when you say, oh, we're going to have a test? What
Pass or fail.
comes to your mind?
Panic.
Pass
To
or
check
fail.
out knowledge.
Gina?
Pass or fail.
Okay, I'm starting to wonder if it's me, because this is the second person trying to talk and I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear Gina?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear Gina.
It's very strange. I don't see anything in the chat. I'm not getting any indication that they can hear you, and you don't appear to be muted.
No, I'm not muted.
I couldn't hear you.
Ah, why? Mercury retrograde, is that why?
I can hear you.
All
can hear
right,
you.
let's see. We're gonna move on. All right. Who gets kind of scared? Who gets anxiety? Say, we're gonna have a test. Oh no. Who gets excited? Who says, oh yay? Give it to me. Some people feel stressed, some people are excited. But all of those kinds of responses are absolutely normal. And I heard a long time ago, I don't even know where I heard this, but ages and ages ago, I heard that a good test is a test that you actually learn something from. And that puzzled me for the longest time until I had that experience. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I learned a lot by having this test. So what you want is for tests to be fair and to cover the learning objectives appropriately. You want to be tested on what you're supposed to be learning. You know, like if you're there to learn welding, you don't want to have to answer questions on electricity, I think. I don't know. So you get what I'm saying there. And you've prepared for that. So you want to be tested on the things that you've prepared for. And then as you go through that process, you'll have less anxiety and you'll have less negative feelings, because all of those pieces are aligned. You know that you know what you're supposed to be learning, you know what the learning objectives are, and you have prepared by learning that material. Creating good tests is not easy, but it is your job. All right, so for the purpose of testing is there are several ways in which we use this. Formative results, I'm not sure why this is tucked in here, but a formative test is done along the way while something is still shaping. And so we might use that information to tweak material coming up. Summative test is like you get to the end of it and then you have the test. And so what you're really looking for there is the learning gain, which is exhibited through the Kirkpatrick level 2, which is what we're talking about here tonight. And so like getting to the end of something and having a test is like, you know, now you've completed this class, or you're taking your qualifying exams, or you're getting the certification, or you're getting the degree because you've met all the program criteria, etc. And then a confirmative analysis can also be tucked in a summative. I'm not sure why that's tucked in there either. And then a meta test, a meta evaluation is when you're evaluating the evaluation. So how, like, for example, you all just went through the evaluation of those reactionaires. That is a form of a meta evaluation where you're like, well, let's take a look at this and see if it follows the rules, if it meets the criteria, etc. Okay, so item types. There are questions that you can ask on a test to get an objective response. So it's one correct answer. It's not going to be up to guessing, as that's the answer. If it's a multiple choice, for example, and you pick number C or number 3 or C, however they're identified by letters or numbers, then that's the answer. It can't be A or B or D. It's got to be C. Can't be 1 or 2 or 4. It's got to be 3. If it's true or false question, then it's either true or false. Can't be both. If it's a matching, then there's only one match. It's not going to be up for debate. And so that's objective. Like, that's the answer. And those types of true, false, multiple choice, and matching are good to use when you are looking for a recognition type of question. And so that's when you want your learner to recognize something. We're going to go through some examples here in just a minute. There are no subjective ways to set up that kind of an item type, because those are objective type questions, one answer. But if you're looking at recall, you want your learner to recall information, then you can use a different objective criteria, and it's the fill in the blank type of question. Or you can do a subjective response in that case, where you're looking for a short answer or an essay. And that's where you get subjectivity. You're taking the text that the learner is creating and you're deciphering it, like reading a paper and putting comments on the paper and grading the paper. It's a subjective experience for me. It's not, there's no one way to do it. There's every single one of you have your own way of doing it. So it's a subjective nature. Does that make sense? All right. I'm really bummed that we can't hear each other talk, because that means I'm just going to be rattling on here for a while. Okay. So we might want to use the chat too. Oh, let's see how it goes. Okay. So let's look at these types of questions. So we're talking about recognition. So like taking a snapshot in your mind and being able to recognize what's there and not there, versus recalling information that you've seen. So let me give you a minute to look at these 2017 Academy Award winners. You look them over, and then I'm going to give you some test sample questions so you can test your recognition and recall. Okay. Okay. Is that enough time? We'll see. Okay, so here's your first test question. All of these are winners, except all of these are 2017 Academy Award winners, except which one? Who wants to hazard a guess? Do you recognize? Anybody? Nobody's popping into the chat. What you think? Anybody want to guess? Dun, dun, dun. It's Bear Story. let's go back up here. I don't know why this won't take me backwards. When I have it on share, it won't let me go backwards. That is so strange. Okay. And then the best foreign language film, anybody remember what this one is? And I can't go back or, oh, here we go. There we go. So Bear's not in here. Oh, let me get off it because I just asked you another question. Best foreign language film. Anybody want to try? So if you can recall that, if you can fill in that blank, that would be a sample of the recall. So let's go see who it was. Foreign language. The Salesman. So this is that grid again that you just saw. It's the same information that we just talked about. We were looking at recognition and recall. We looked at the matching and the multiple choice. Well, in my mind, it's matching because that's how I do it in my own brain when I'm looking at, I kind of take this visual image of the question with all those award winners on there. And then in my mind's eye, I go through and see, who's there, who wasn't there on this list. That's how I do it in my mind. And then we had a recall. That was a fill in the blank. We didn't have any subjective question types, item types for recognition. And we didn't have any subjective for recall. We were not asked to do a short answer or an essay. What type's best? What should you use? Well, it depends on the content and the learning objectives. So those learning objectives are going to really be key when you're setting up your level 2 test for your assignment coming up. Depends on what you're trying to achieve. So, and I'm not that this is the Bloom's taxonomy, which is really important, but I wasn't going to go over it. If you want to just look at that real quick for your own sake, it's helpful. Well, I will say this, it just depends. So at the bottom of the tier, you can see that what you're looking to do is to get your students to remember. So it goes up from there on the pyramid. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And these, the remember goes with the description for that is to recall facts and basic concepts. If you want your students to understand something, then you're looking for them to explain ideas and concepts. If you want them to apply the information, then they need to use the information in a new scenario. And the same is for all of those. We are looking at a level 2 test, so we're not looking at analyze, evaluate, create, etc. We are looking at recall and recognition for level 2. Okay, so examples. Here are, let me scoot this over. Here are some examples of the learning objectives that are associated with the item types that you'll be thinking about for your level 2 test. So in this case, the learning objective is that the learner is going to be able to recognize and name the parts of the human skeletal system. So what we're saying here is the most suitable test items based on that grid that you just saw is objective test items, which are going to be multiple choice or true and false or matching and fill in the blank completion. Okay, does that make sense? If your objective is that the learner will demonstrate safe laboratory skills, that's a performance test item. If your objective is that you want the learner to be able to critique and appraise, that's a higher level skill. Critique and appraise an English composition on the basis of its organization, that's an essay, that's an extended response, that's going to be subjectively graded. or if you want the learner to be able to cite 4 examples of satire that Twain uses in Huckleberry Finn, again, that's going to be subjective, and that's going to be a short answer. So the key is that whether you can measure the learning objectives by the test items. You want to be able to create your test question to measure how the learning took place for that learning objective. Does that make sense? Anybody got questions for that? Questions that you have to type in the chat since we can't hear. Okay. So here's the thing. We're getting ready to do this level 2 test, right? We're not using these. We're not doing essay and a long response or a short response. If you use something like that on your test, then you have to give extremely detailed guidelines on how the grader is supposed to grade that. You would have to provide that because you might not necessarily be the one grading the test that you establish. You might be turning that over to some other trainers, or you might be developing and evaluating, but you're not the trainer. So it just depends on how your organization or how your situation is set up. But we're not going to be doing this part. We're going to be looking at the types of learning objectives that can be tested through objective tests with multiple choice, true, false, matching, fill in the blank, maybe performance test item. You'll have to determine that when you do your level 2. So remember in that you want the test to be appropriate, because, and in that sense, what you're trying to do is make sure that the learning objectives are the thing that's driving and guiding your evaluation. The learning objectives are key when you develop your test questions. And then you also want to think about the feasibility and efficiency of the test, how many learners are in it, and what's the test environment. For example on that, if you're going to set up a test and you're going to have long or short essay on the test, consider if you have 2,000 learners in that environment and who's going to grade that. Subjective testing is going to take longer than objective testing to grade, because somebody has to think it through and determine, instead of true, false, check, 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 check. You know, you can do that very quickly, which we're going to talk about pros and cons in just a minute. But so you have to think about that. Okay, we've got 2,000 learners coming through. How are we going to grade these? Are we going to have multiple graders and they all need criteria? So we're going to need rubrics, etc. So you have to think about those things. You have 10 people. That's, that's a little bit more controllable, because maybe you'll have one grader doing that, and you can you still need rubric or whatever to in order to determine if the learner is meeting the criteria based on their answer. But 10 versus 2,000 is a little bit different way of handling things. Okay, so let's look at this. So the general guidelines are to make the first few items easier so that the learner can engage with the test and get in that flow. You don't want them to get hit with like the hardest thing first, because then they get discouraged and then their emotions start to come into play, because as we saw earlier, some people already have fear and anxiety and stress about tests. So you want to get them engaged with the tests and have them moving along. You want the items to be independent. You don't want them to be able to answer questions on the test based on other questions on the test. Has anybody ever experienced that before? Yeah. Avoid trick questions. You're not there to trick people. You're just there to measure their learning. Avoid negative words. And if it's a really long test, use a variety of question formats just to help keep them engaged. You don't want to bounce around every single time, but if you break it up, then it gives them an opportunity to come at it with from a fresh perspective too. Keeps things a little bit fresh for them. All right, so for multiple choice items, you want to keep those response items as short as possible. And by the way, I'm going to be sharing these PowerPoints just like I did last time. I will send them out in the announcement like I did last time, so you have access to it. I'm saying that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can do it. And then the response item should have only one defensible answer and make them about the same length. So when we say, you want the answer to be clear. You don't want them to be so close that it's confusing and that the learner can't pick the right answer. And you want them to be kind of the same length. And so one defensible answer and kind of the same length. It's just easier to work with them when they're all the same kind of chunk. So, and it's also off-putting, like you're trying to figure out, and the students get caught up thinking, is this a trick? This only has one word. This one only has, this is a long sentence. Just try to make them as tight as possible and consistent. Incorrect responses are also called distractors, and they should be plausible. So if you're throwing something in here that isn't correct, it still needs to be something that is possible. I mean, if it's totally not possible, then that's easily eliminated, right? But you're testing their knowledge. So you're not trying to feed them the answers. You want to test their knowledge. So you want to make sure that you have plausible answers in there. And then make all of the responses grammatically and logically consistent with the stem so that the sentence can read correctly. If you're doing a multiple choice, so for example, well, this is example of number 9, which of the following costs is subject to 3% fee cap? The answers are just the answer. It doesn't have a whole sentence, it's just an answer. That's not a good example, but like if you're giving a multiple choice, and is there one up here that said to manage workflow? So you want to be able to say, what is the primary use of the tech code drill down report and then it makes sense to be able to say, well, the primary use is to be able to manage the workflow, to manage the workflow, to manage the file status, to keep tabs on files. And this one starts off a little differently because it doesn't say to. CRFS uses this report to check for discrepancies. If I were creating this test, I would eliminate this first part. CRFS uses this report and start it with to check for discrepancies between sent files and what they have in their inventory. That makes sense? Yeah. Okay. So, you also want to avoid all of the above and none of the above. Try to make really actual plausible answers in the selections. And then rotate the answers and place them randomly. You don't want it to always be the first one or the third one. You want to mix it up so that if you have 10 multiple choice items, some are A, some are B, some are C, some are D, all mixed up. All right, pros and cons. How are we doing on time? All right, we're getting there. All right, pros and cons of multiple choice items. The pros are they are easy to score because you can have a guide and you can go through the test and you can say, oh, the answer is A. They selected A. It's correct. The answer is A. They selected D. It's incorrect. That's easy. You can do that really quickly. It reduces the guessing. What were they trying to say? What were they trying to communicate? You don't have to guess. It's clear. And incorrect responses can be helpful in diagnosing learning problems, especially if you have let's say there's 10 learners taking the test and 5 of them selected D instead of A, then you know that if you're the instructor, the evaluator of this, you know that instructor needs to clarify and go give some additional instruction to make that learning more clear. And then the other pro is for measurement, the most versatile type of objective question. So you can get a lot of, it's versatile. You can use it a lot of different ways, but it's also an objective question. The cons are that it can be difficult and time consuming to write. You got to come up with all these responses. You got to make sure everything is grammatically correct, etc. It's often difficult to develop credible distractors, which is probably why we've all seen those very clear distractors. Like if you're answering questions about electricity and one of the answers is about water, then it's clear it doesn't belong there. But that's probably why, because it's kind of hard, excuse me, sometimes to come up with those. And then if it's poorly written, most knowledgeable participants will overinterpret the items. So I'm sure you've been in that situation too, where you overthink the question and answers and you kind of spin in there for a little while. You've probably encountered that yourself. All right, for true and false, here are the rules. You're going to avoid the use, we have 22 minutes. Okay, avoid the use of always, all, never, only, or none. And here's an example. The appraisal fee must be paid to a certified appraisal who is not employed by the bank. Huh? I don't get that. I don't understand that. I'm going to move on. Okay, if a question is controversial, cite the authority whose judgment is referenced. If a question is controversial, so here's two ways they put this. The United States should impose sanctions on Myanmar's coup leaders. So then they're saying, cite the authority whose judgment is referenced. So they changed this to say, according to the New York Times, the United States should impose sanctions on Myanmar's coup leaders. So you see how they adjusted that to add it's not a citation, but it's the reference of where that information came from. True and false. Okay. We just saw that. Okay. You'll want to have one concept per item, no double barrels. Each statement should be entirely true or entirely false. Again, don't get tricky with it. It's either true or false, clear. Have about the same number of true and false items. You don't want them all true and all false, so you want to mix that up a little bit. Avoid trivial details to make a question true or false. So that gets into trickiness too, right? Texas A6 loans must be underwritten by clues. True, false. So yeah, it starts getting, I don't know anything about Texas or loans or underwriters or clues, but I can tell you that that is an example of trivial details to say it's underwritten by clues, but maybe it's underwritten by some other organization too. I don't know. Let's see here. I gotta write this name down. All right. And then you want to avoid long and complicated statements. Keep it simple. Keep it. This acronym, keep it simple, silly is how I would say it today. Back in the day when I learned that, it was a different word for the other S, but I would say, come on, silly. All right, especially if I'm talking to my grandchildren. Anyway, all right, pros and cons. Pros. The pros of a true and false is that given items tend to be short and can cover more material, so you can get through a lot of content that you want to test them on. They're easy to put together and they're easy to score. The cons is that it encourages guessing, because if you don't know the answer or if you don't want to take time on it, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to have it right or wrong. But I mean, it's 50-50. So that can be a con. And for other than recall type questions, they can be difficult to write. So there's some difficulties there. All right, so for completion items, these are the fill in the blank types. Make sure that the deleted word is a significant word in the sentence that you're testing for. Use only 1 or 2 blanks per item. You don't want so many holes in the sentence that they don't really know what you're asking for. So if you take out all those important words and make them all blanks, there's just not, it's like, how am I supposed to answer this question? But if you keep some of those keywords in there, then they know, oh yeah, that's right. This is the rest of that sentence. Require single word answers rather than phrases. So here's an example. Community blight for purposes of addressing neighborhood stabilization is defined as an area of welfare substantially burdened by deteriorating property conditions, including property vacancies threatening community rejuvenation and constituting a threat to fill in the blank, human health, safety, and financial drain on public resources and welfare. All right. Completion items. Here's another, some more tidbits on that. Place the blank near or at the beginning of the sentence. I mean, at the, sorry, near or at the end of the sentence, not at the beginning. Because you want to give them enough information in the sentence that they can complete it, right? You want to get their thoughts headed that way. And then you want to put a little bit of variation in there. The pros, they are relatively easy to construct. It does eliminate guessing, and it's quick for a participant to complete if they know the answer. It's also can be difficult to score, and you need a subject matter expert because they might use different words, but it's the same concept. They might, they might not get that exact word, but they use a different word that represents their knowledge. So you need somebody who knows that. And it's difficult to get questions beyond the factual level. So yeah, so it just depends on what it is you're trying to measure. All right, overall guidelines follow the same principles associated with constructing items and directions as those for developing the questionnaires. So that list of rules, don't use the double barrel questions, et cetera, et cetera. Those same rules apply. Those are kind of standard for what we're talking about here. And you want to make certain that every question can be directly tied to measuring mastery of learning objectives. There we are again, back to those learning objectives. They are key. The question has to tie to a learning objective. Otherwise, what are you measuring? The learning objectives are the things this learner is supposed to be learning in there. So your questions need to be evaluating that. That's the job. So, and speaking of those rules from the reactionnaire assignment, the last assignment that y'all just turned in, if you need a refresh on those rules, you can find them on the last, I think it's on page 3 of the job aid that is linked into that assignment. So if you go back to where you posted your assignment and you read the directions for that assignment, you'll see the job aid assessment tool in there, and you can click on that and it's in there. You can also see it on the PowerPoint that I sent out after the last Zoom. It's in the PowerPoint, through there. You have to click through, and find it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, good. We got a little time here. Let's talk about what is happening for this assignment 2 for creating a level 2 test based on the Kirkpatrick book, level 2. All right. This is the set of instructions that are in that assignment link. When you're in the module and you click on it, this is what you're seeing. You, the training evaluation specialist in a design team, so that's your role, that's your perspective, your point of view, is you are a training evaluation specialist on a design team. And you need to create a test to measure students' learning. So you're going to write this level 2 test. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of the chapters in this book, the Kirkpatrick Evaluating Training Programs, the 4 levels. You're going to pick chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Choose one of the chapters. They correlate with, you can see them here. These are the chapter titles. Chapter 3 is the 4 levels and overview. Chapter 4 is evaluating reaction. Chapter 5 is evaluating learning. Chapter 6 is evaluating behavior. Chapter 7 is evaluating results. You're going to pick one of those chapters. You're going to read it again. I know you've read it, but you're going to you're picking it apart now. You're going to read the chapter that you chose, and you're going to extract from that chapter 2 to 5 learning objectives that you identify in the chapter. Pick 2 to 5 learning objectives from the chapter that you pick. All right. And then what you're going to do is create 13 questions that measure students' learning. So you're writing 2 to 5 questions. It means you're going to have multiple questions. Excuse me. You're identifying 2 to 5 learning objectives, and you're writing 13 questions. So it's not going to be 1-to-1. It's going to be 1-to-many. You have if you have 2 learning objectives and you have 13 questions, then you're going to have 2 or sometimes 3 for each learning objective. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. And then you are going to, in the document that you're preparing, you're going to match the questions that you've created with the learning objectives that you identified. So you're going to take those 2 to 5 learning objectives, and you're going to have your list of questions, and you're going to match. This question goes with that objective. This question goes with that objective. You're going to set up the test pass rate, which means you need to get 85% of this right or 95% of this correct in order to pass. And then there's a typo in here, but it's provide an introduction, not add. Provide an introduction. So you're going to have an introduction to that, all that creativity that you're going to come up with. I have an example to show you. Let's see if I'll have to stop share and pop over. Oh, that was frightening. Loud. Okay, let me get this document going, and I want to share this one. And it is this one. All right. Let me scooch it up here so I can see. All right, so this is an example. And in this example, they picked chapter 3, which was the 4 levels and overview. And you can see that they came up with these learning objectives. They left 2 of them. The others have been redacted because otherwise, if you were going to pick that chapter, then you would just have a bunch of learning objectives already prepared for you. But so in this sample, you can see that what you're doing is identifying the learning objectives from the chapter that you pick, chapter 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. Not all of them, not 2 of them, just one chapter. All right. Here's the introduction. You're going to give an introduction. You can see here, this is the pass test percentage. So you must receive a grade of 80% or better on this assessment to pass this section of the course. You're going to provide that. How much material do they have to get correct in order to pass your test? And then you're going to use this grid, and this grid shows up on that assignment tab. When you click into the assignment, you'll see the instructions that I just read to you, and you'll see that grid. So it's in there, and you can just put that in your Word document. You can create that table in your Word document, or maybe not Microsoft Word, maybe it's Google Doc, whatever. All right, but here are the columns that you're going to be addressing in your table, and you're going to use this format. You're going to list the learning objectives. So you see it here, name the 4 levels of evaluation developed by Kirkpatrick. Up here, what's it say? Name the 4 levels of evaluation developed by Kirkpatrick. So there it is. It's listed again. There's the learning objective. Here's the type of question, the item type that they've selected to test this particular objective is multiple choice. Here's the test item. This is what the question is going to be. Here are what the responses are going to be. Where'd that come from? It comes from this part of the book. The answer the answer is number 3, and it's on page 21. This is how you're going to construct your level test for the Kirkpatrick level 2 for the individual assignment number 2. All right, and then you can see on here on this particular document, for whatever this objective is, they've selected a multiple choice, same thing. They've selected a true or false, same thing. Another multiple choice, and here's this other learning objective. Describe the purpose of each level. So you see up here, what was the learning objective? Describe the purpose of each level. You're taking that learning objective, you're plugging it in down here. You're telling us what type of item type you're using. This is going to be a completion item. You're giving us the question and the answers. This is what it's going to look like on the test. And you're telling us what the correct answer is and where you got the information. You're going to do that for all 13 questions. And then conclude. That is what you're doing for this individual assignment number 2. Now, we can try to hear each other again, but it doesn't seem like that was successful. And also you can type in some questions. So if you have questions about that assignment, we have 6 minutes. So let's see here. So, oh, some of you can hear each other. That's so interesting. It's me. I don't know. A test is a check of knowledge. Yes, correct. Okay, I was just scanning the chats to see if there was something in there. No questions about the assignment. Okay, if you say so. You could try to ask it again. You could try, maybe, I don't know. How long does the intro have to be? Long enough to introduce it, a paragraph, just a few sentences on that sample, and I'll send the sample out too. But on the sample, you saw that it was pretty short. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Let me share again. And let's see here. This one was really short. I hope you've enjoyed reading chapter 3 of Evaluating Training Programs by Kirkpatrick. As a final assessment, you'll respond to several questions from the reading you just completed. And then there's the percentage. You must receive a grade of blah, blah. So that help? I would do a little bit more because, you know, I'm kind of talky, but you know, you want to introduce it to say this is what you're doing, you know. But this one has less pieces. You don't have to worry about you know, attaching other things. It's that document with that format, with that table. And the focus is on selecting your learning objectives out of that chapter. They should be pretty easy to spot. I'm wondering even if they list them at the beginning of the chapter. Let me take a peek real quick. No, good. You'll have to think about that. What are the learning objectives? And then what are the questions that align? 13 questions lined up to 2 to 5 learning objectives mapped out. So you're basically mapping your test questions with learning objectives. Okay, well, we are going to end 3 minutes early then if there's no questions, and if you feel like you can't ask anything anyway, because we can't all hear you. I don't know what to say about that. I had my volume on, but do you want to try again? Anybody want to try again? No. All right then. If there's nothing else, then I'll see you later. And this is due April 21st, and also let me know about your team assignments. Otherwise, I'll be setting those up next week. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I heard that. That's weird. Interesting. I had a feeling something was going
Thank
to.
you.
Thank you.
I'm hanging on in case anybody wants to have a chit chat.
Excuse me, Miss Professor.
Hi.
Hi, this is me, Derek.
Did
Uh,
you want to talk to me privately?
sure, but is
Okay.
it better till everybody's off or make an
we have a
appointment with
couple-
you?
Does anybody else want to talk to me privately? You're muted, Sonia. There you go.
I was hoping to as well.
Okay.
I
Well,
can wait until later, Professor, if you don't mind, or if it's okay.
I
Later?
can,
I got just a small bit to talk to you about privately, not so much.
what's that? Say
I
again.
said I can wait until later if it's appropriate, if there's appropriate time tomorrow or something like that.
I have a question. I don't care if anyone hears. It'll be quick. I
Okay,
just couldn't get
Jasper.
my
Hold on,
microphone to work.
Derek. Go ahead, Jasper.
I had a slow start to the semester and I haven't responded to all the discussion posts. If I respond to those, can I get any partial credit on the grade for the discussion posts?
Respond and let me see.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Well, I guess I'll go next, if you don't mind, Miss Hart.
If you don't
I
mind that
will turn it.
it's not just us, Derek, I just want you to understand it's
Okay.
not just us. So if you want a private conversation, then let's set up a time for a phone call.
Oh no, it's not that private. It's just about assignment. I still have the previous, kind of like related to the previous talker. I haven't turned in my last assignment that we had last week. I'm still getting it done, letting you know I'm not giving up on it, and I'll turn it in as soon as I can.
Let
Hopefully
me
tonight.